Hi, Yuki. Yuki, say hi to YouTube. Okay. What's up, guys? It's Ali. Welcome back to another video. If you're new around here, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a little review and demo from products I got from Arrtx. So if you're interested, please keep watching. And at the end of the video, make sure to like the video if you like it, and don't forget to comment, subscribe, and share. Alright, so today we're going to be reviewing this watercolor palette by Rubens. They have different sized palettes ranging from 12 colors to 48 colors. The one I'm going to be using today is the Arrtx Transparent Watercolor in 24 colors. Price-wise, I think this is anywhere from $35 to $75 for the larger set. So right off the bat, the packaging is in this beautiful baby pink box, one of my favorite colors, so that's already aesthetically pleasing. As I'm opening the box, I just wanted to let you guys know that this is not how it came in. When I got the package, I was so excited I literally ripped everything open and started decorating my palette with some stickers that Arrtx also sent me. So the box comes with 4 things. Of course, it comes with the actual palette in a metal tin, which is also in the same baby pink color, and it has an extra hidden mixing area on the inside that flips out, and we'll get to the palette soon. The box also comes with a printed color swatch sheet. It's a piece of paper with pre-printed swatches of all of the colors, and it looks super neat and informative, but I wouldn't know because I can't read Chinese. So sorry, but it's probably really helpful for people who could read it. It also comes with a baby pink cloth, but I took it out and I use it now to clean my glasses instead because it was too pretty and I didn't really want to get watercolor on it. But here's what it would look like if it was in my box. Finally, it also comes with another blank watercolor paper with pre-labels on it. I usually make my own swatches for my other palettes with random watercolor paper, so I thought it was super convenient and thoughtful that they included this. And now I'll do some swatches for you guys. And again, all the characters are in Chinese, so I wasn't sure what order to put them in, so I just kind of put them in the order that they came in. This is my OCD kicking in, trying to match each color to the name, and since I can't read Chinese, I was trying to match which character looked like what. Then I found out they all have the same characters on the back, so now I'm assuming that's the brand name. Each watercolor pan came individually wrapped in a thin paper-like sticker, and I'm sure it probably had the names on them, but I was too excited and I ripped everything up, so I wouldn't know. And the pans can be taken off from the palette itself, so that's great if you wanted to switch up your palette or you didn't like some of the colors. One other small detail I noticed were the shape of these half pans. The edges are slightly more rounded than my other half pans from Winsor & Newton. Theirs is more straight edged. And the roundness of the corners on these are just a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to me. And I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but just judging from the detail in the packaging, I'm pretty sure that this is intentional, and I really appreciate the attention to detail and presentation. So 20 colors out of this set are single pigmented. That means that each of those colors have specific characteristics, and they usually tend to be more vibrant and saturated. They're very differently made from the watercolors I usually use, which are a lot less saturated, and I would have to bring up more paint to mix with water. As you can tell from my swatches, I also tend to use a lot of water and mix it with a certain amount of watercolor to get the consistency I like. But with these watercolors, I had to cut back on the watercolor and use even more water because it was already so pigmented. So it's quite a big change from my usual palette and took some getting used to, but towards the end I started getting the hang of it. And I will say it's really easy to spread the paint on paper while it's still wet. With my other palette, I had to work really fast because the paint rarely allows for movement after it touches the paper. With these colors, I noticed that it takes time settling onto the paper and allows you to add more paint or water and blend nicely without making it blotchy. Although once it's dry, I found that it was still easy to add more layers onto it and it wouldn't move the layer below. So that was a really good selling point for me. Another selling point was when I found out that these colors were light fast. Again, if you weren't impatient like me, you probably would have saw the light fast scale for each of the color pans on the individual packaging. So for future reference, if you're thinking about purchasing this, try to rip it off in a neat way. And also what light fast means is basically the colors will never fade, even if it touches sunlight for long periods of time. I don't keep my paintings anywhere near the sun, but I have noticed that over time a painting will appear more dull and lifeless, so the fact that the colors you put down will stand the test of time is really a good plus for me. For the colors themselves, I really like that it came with a lot of brighter tones, basically all the colors on the second column of my swatches, because those are the colors I tend to lean towards more in my own artwork. There are quite a lot of blues in this palette. I feel like 3 of the blues are pretty similar to each other, so I wouldn't mind replacing some of those. Only other thing I noticed in this palette was that there wasn't a white, and I personally do like using white to make more pastel colors, which again isn't a big deal because you can always switch out the colors. With that being said, I'm actually really happy with the colors that they provided. I think it's a good balance of earthy tones versus bright colors. So now onto the demo. Since this was just for practice, I'm using a reference photo I found on Pinterest. If you know her, feel free to tag her. For the paper, I actually ran out of my normal watercolor paper, so I'm using this old sketchbook I found, and she was on her last page. I'm not sure of the actual weight of it because I got it so long ago, but it feels like it would be around 150 pounds. Whenever I'm doing watercolor illustrations, I always sketch first in a color pencil. I find that color pencils leave less marks than using graphite, and it blends so much easier to the watercolor. I'm using Prismacolor in Scarlet Red, and then cleaning up the sketch with some black ink. Then I lay down my first layer overall. I like to build up the drawing all together instead of focusing on one area at a time, so I could really see if the colors work well together before I put too much detail on it. I really loved working with these paints because it was so easy to blend. I barely had to do any work. Like I said before, it was a bit of a learning curve. This was my 3rd painting I did with the Rubens, and I started to feel comfortable experimenting a little bit with my shading. But overall, I think the learning curve was well worth it because the quality is so much higher. In the first painting that I did to test out these watercolors, I wanted to see how well they work with my other brands that I had as well. And the answer to that is that they don't. There are certain colors I like in my other palettes that I've gotten used to integrating into my pieces, and I didn't want to keep remixing them. So that was the purpose for the test. And I found that mixing different watercolor brands with the Rubens gave off muddy and ugly colors, so I wouldn't suggest that. But when it comes to layering the watercolor on after it dries, I find that there really wasn't an issue there. In general, I don't think these watercolors are meant to be mixed with any other brands, or at least the brands I had, which again really isn't a bad thing because mixing different brands isn't a necessity for me, and they do mix perfectly within their own palette, so I'm not really complaining. One of the very few things I didn't like was the container itself. I'm not really fond of the mixing palette that flips out. I think it would be great for outdoor use, so you don't have to carry an extra mixing palette. But for me, I primarily do my watercolor in an indoor setting, so I like to use my own mixing trays and prefer ceramic over metal. And I have a pretty small table also, so when the palette flips open, I found it hard to place anywhere without taking up a lot of space. So I personally didn't find a use for it, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing that they included it. One of my favorite things about these watercolors is how consistent the paint is. I notice I'm usually very heavy-handed when painting large areas and usually hate that part because it's so hard to move the product around. But I was pleasantly surprised to see that these colors were so easy to cover large areas. And again, it didn't leave blotches everywhere. It remained super smooth even when I used a lot of water, so I was really impressed by that. After finishing up my watercolors, I sometimes go in with some of my Copic alcohol markers in certain areas where I want to make the colors more prominent. Then I'll go in with Posca markers for final touches and highlights. During this time, usually I would go over some of the inking that I did in the beginning, and also in other areas I want more contrast in. But I found that in this painting, I really didn't have to do much of that at all, because it was really easy to build it up with the watercolor already. I'm not kidding at all, these watercolors are heavily pigmented. And that's how I do my watercolor paintings. So final thoughts, I really like them. I think once you get past the little learning curve in the beginning, the payoff is well worth it, and I would totally recommend them. So that's it for the video. Thank you guys for watching, and a big thank you to Arrtx for introducing me to this product. They also send over a beautiful alcohol marker set, so if you guys are interested in a review for that, let me know in the comments below. Hope you guys have a great day, and until next time, bye!